Hi and welcome to Bella Coconut Boutique on YouTube. If this is the first video that you are watching with me, welcome. I am so excited to have you here with me today and to share this fun pattern for an octopus. If you have already watched one of my videos before and you're coming back again, thank you so much for your continued support, for joining me again in working on another one of my patterns. So today we're going to be working on this sweet and snuggly little octopus keychain. As with many of my patterns, if you choose not to make it into a keychain and you want to just leave it as a snuggly little octopus, feel free to do so. I'm just going to give the tutorial on how to add the keychain part at the end. If that's not what you would like to do, you can just skip that part. But we will work on this octopus today. And for materials that you're going to need a size 6 bulky yarn. The one I'm using is Sweet Snuggles Light. This is a Loops and Threads brand from Michaels. And the color that I am using is lavender. You're going to need a size 6.5 millimeter or a size K hook. Some hooks do not have the letters written on the handle. If that is the case, this one just calls for a 6.5 millimeter hook. You're going to need needles to weave in your ends. I like to use one needle to weave in the yarn and another one to add my keychain pieces onto. For the keychain, I do use a long bead connector that I do get off of Amazon. If you would like the link below for the ones that I have purchased for this project, please just make a comment and I will list any of the items that I used for materials if you need any help with that. So there's the long ball connector, and then these are the lobster clasps that I use on the keychain for the hooking onto backpacks. For this pattern, I am going to use 12 millimeter eyes. When I use safety eyes, I do use a lighter to help melt the backs. I will show you in the pattern, but the backs are a bit pointy, and this, by melting it and flattening it, one, it helps to keep the safety back on, and two, it helps from it coming through the stuffing and out the other side. So if you want to use a lighter, you can. If you want to hand embroider your eyes on, feel free to do so. You'll need some filling of some sort. I'm using polyfill fiber filling, and then a good pair of scissors. So like many of my patterns, I do start with a magic circle or a magic ring. You may see that interchangeably used in other patterns. There are some really great tutorials already available on YouTube. If you need any suggestions, please comment below and I will put in a link to one that I have used. So we're just going to start with a magic circle. With this yarn, it is very easy when you pull it for it to break. So I highly suggest when you're starting your magic circle, you crochet loosely so that it doesn't snag when you try to pull it closed. So into the magic circle, we are going to do 8 single crochets. That is 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And now we're going to pull the tail to close the circle. And now you have a nice circled beginning. For this pattern and for the rest of it, from this row and going forward, we are going to be working in the front loop only. If you look at the stitch, you'll see that there's a front loop piece and a back loop piece. There we go. We're going to be working under just the front loop portion for this pattern. So in each of the stitches from your beginning magic circle, we are going to increase, meaning we are going to put 2 single crochets into 1 stitch. So now 1 stitch becomes 2. So for all 8 stitches, we are going to increase in the front loops so that the end of this row or round, we will have 16 total single crochets. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So for round 3, we are going to increase in every other stitch. So we will do a single crochet in the front loop, then an increase, single crochet, increase, all the way around. That will take it so that there begins our row from 16 stitches up to 24. Now, if you want to start using a stitch marker, you can certainly go ahead and start doing so that you can count your rounds. If you want to just take the tail from your magic ring and tuck it in, you can do so as well. That's just how I tend to do it. So in round 3, we're going to single crochet in the front loop only, and then increase. Single crochet, increase. All the way around, and this will bring our round to 24 total stitches. Stitch 23 and 24. So we just completed round 3. Our first round was our magic circle with 8 single crochets. Our second round was increasing in each of those single crochets, so the second round was 16 stitches. And the third round we increased every other stitch, so now we have 24. For rounds 4 and 5, you are just going to single crochet in the front loops only, all the way around. So 24 single crochets around for round 4 and 24 single crochets around for round 5. If you want to pause the video here, you can do so and meet me back after you have finished the 5th round with 24 single crochets. Okay, so we are just finishing round 5. So we have the first round of our magic circle, our first row of increases, our second row of increasing every other stitch, and 2 rows of single crochets around for 24 stitches each row. The next row, row 6, we are going to begin our first decrease. So we are going to single crochet in the front loop of the first stitch and decrease across the next 2 stitches, bringing 2 stitches down to 1 stitch. Now I like to use the invisible decrease, so I go under the front loop of the first stitch, wrap my hook around, go under the front loop of the second stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through those 2 stitches. If you choose to decrease differently, do whatever is comfortable for you and your aesthetic and how you like your pieces to look. This is just the way that I choose to decrease my project. So by the end of round 6, we are going to be taking our stitch count from 24 stitches down to 16 stitches. Okay, and so now here we are at the bottom of the body, and now we're going to start working on the tentacles. So you will want to have a stitch marker or move your tail. Into the first stitch, we are going to slip stitch under that first front loop. We are going to chain 3. We are going to slip stitch into the second chain from the hook. So not this first one, but into the second chain and into the third. So we're going to slip stitch to that second chain and into the third. And then in the next stitch, we're actually going to decrease across these 2 stitches. So we're going to insert, wrap around, insert into that second one, yarn over, and slip stitch. And we're going to repeat that for a total of 8 tentacles. So chain 3, insert your hook into that second chain from the hook and slip stitch, and again in that third chain and slip stitch. Then we're going to decrease across the next 2 stitches and slip stitch it together. So at the end of this round, we will have a total of 8 tentacles. So slip stitch and slip stitch and decrease with a slip stitch. So chain 3, slip stitch into that second chain, into the third chain, and decrease. Now these little octopuses are perfect for craft fairs. There's something small and snuggly that kids tend to love. These have been the biggest sellers for me at my local craft fairs. And I list them for $6 each without the keychains. And kids love them because they're just small, perfect size for little hands. Okay, and that is our last one. And we are going to just decrease into those last 2 stitches. So at this point, we should have our 8 tentacles. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And now we're going to add our eyes. Again, when I use my safety eyes, the plastic safety eyes, I do like to melt the back with a lighter just to get them a little more secure. So I like to line up where I'm closing, or the beginning of the rows is, toward the back. And I go between rows 4 and 5 for my safety eyes. So here is round 1 where we have our magic circle, 2, 3, and 4. So between rows 4 and 5. And depending upon if you want them wider apart, if you want them a little closer, you get to choose however you want to place your eyes. But this one I have 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, open between my eyes. And I'm just going to pop it through and put the backing on. So if you look at the back of the safety eyes right now, they are a little bit pointy. I always get concerned that even with the stuffing, that if somebody were to step on it, it could poke through the other side inadvertently. So that's why I like to take my lighter and melt the back. So I will just get this going to melt. I like to get it to bubble a little bit. And then I push my lighter, and now it's a flat button. So now it extends over the edge of the plastic ring, so this ring can't inadvertently pop off. And if you look at the back, it's not going to push through the other side. So I'm just going to repeat on the other safety eye. Just be careful when you do this so you don't burn yourself, that you don't burn your work or light the yarn on fire. I can certainly say that I have done both. So just be careful anytime you're around fire. And now you have flattened the back of your safety eyes. All right, so now we're just going to flip our work right side out, and we're going to begin to close up the bottom of the octopus. So we're going to decrease in front of each of the tentacles. It may be hard to find some of the stitches on the back side, but if you just focus on decreasing behind each tentacle, then at the end of this round you'll have 8 stitches. So we're just going to kind of look behind our tentacle and try to find the stitches that we worked in from the round before. So there's 1. Again, however you choose to make your decreases, you will decrease 8 times in a row behind each of the tentacles. There's 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. And behind the last one, 8. Now I find I don't tend to use these incline hooks. I find them a little sharp versus the rounded ones. However, for this project, I do like to use my incline because it has a pointier top. So I find that it goes under these stitches a little bit easier. So after you are done with your 8 decreases, we are just going to slip stitch into that first decrease, and we are going to cut our yarn to weave in our end. But first, this is where we'll get to stuff our octopus. I'm using polyfill fiber filling that I have gotten from Amazon before, Walmart, Joann's Fabrics, Michael's. But you can also grab an inexpensive pillow from Walmart or Target. Usually the inexpensive pillows are between $3 to $5. And if you just want to cut it open, you can just take out the filling from there and use that to stuff your projects. So you choose if you want yours to be a little firmer or if you want it to be a little squishy, and stuff it as full as you would like, and then sew in your ends and close up the opening. For me, when I do this, I like to do my very first stitch underneath the stitch that I did my slip stitch into and pull it from behind. If you look, you can sort of see that slip stitch kind of sticking up. By coming from behind and pulling through, it pulls that little bump under. So that's just how I like to start when I am weaving in my ends and sewing off the round. So I will just weave under and back through the front loops of each of the 8 stitches. And when I get all the way back to the beginning, I'm going to pull my yarn to close the opening. Just make sure, I have had it where it pulls down a tentacle. Just be sure that it doesn't get stuck underneath the tentacle when you're pulling your yarn closed. And when it's closed, you can fasten it off or tie it off however you like to. I just tend to take my yarn and weave it back and forth under several stitches 2 to 3 times, kind of in a zigzag pattern or like a bobbin weave. That way the end is really kind of woven in under the stitches and will have a much harder time to unravel. Again, you can choose to close your piece however you're most comfortable with. So when I get to the last pass with my needle, I will turn it so that I aim my needle through and pull the tail through the body. So this is where I've had it where it accidentally catches on a tentacle. Just make sure that nothing is grasped. And then pull it through, cutting off any excess. And that is it. There's your little octopus with 8 super cute little tentacles at the bottom. If you want to stop the pattern here and just make little pocket octopuses, or as my sweet nephew calls them, poctopi, you can just leave it as is. If you want to add a keychain, you can do so at this point. When I add the keychain, I like to use a larger-eyed needle, because when I've tried to do it with a hook, I will always end up pulling out filling when I pull the needle head through or the hook head through, and I don't want to pull any filling out of this. So I will go under a couple of stitches, push my needle in, tuck just a few of the balls in, and then pull it through to the other side to get it out. Like so. And when I add my clip, my claw clasp, I like to have it so that the back part is where it opens, so it hooks towards the back. So when I put it on, I line it up so that that opening is towards the back. Then I feed the keychain piece through and attach. That way when it clips onto the bag, the face is sticking out to the front. And that is it. That is the pattern to make a little octopus keychain. If you like this video, please like, share, comment below. I love hearing from all of you when you're working on your projects. I do try to respond as soon as I can. So if you like this video, please share it. I would love for you to hit the subscribe button so that you are part of Bella Coconut Boutique on YouTube and you can follow more of the patterns as they are available. If you want to be in the know so that you are notified when a new pattern pops up, make sure you hit the bell so that you are notified and get notifications when new patterns are available. Again, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate each and every one of you watching, and happy crafting.